we are going to do, one of the most powerful parts of President Trump's 2017 tax bill was full expensing of equipment. We are going to make that, as President Trump said in his speech to Congress, that will be retroactive to January 20th. The other thing that we are looking to add is full expensing for factories. So bring your factory back. You can fully expense the equipment and the building. We will couple that with deregulation, cheap energy, and regulatory certainty, and that will continue to make the U.S. the greatest destination for domestic and foreign investment.
Now that's what I signed up for with America First. Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent, in the briefing room first thing this morning as part of Trump's 100-day celebration, allowing the press pool to ask questions of many key cabinet members and figures in the White House. Scott Bessent explaining Trump's plan, his strategy, if you will, for reindustrializing and bringing manufacturing right back here to America on our shores. And join us now is Allison Steinberg from the White House to talk more about what's going on. It is very busy, Allison, and I don't know if they can hear you. Look, I can see the signs of the illegals blowing behind you. That's because President Donald Trump is about to take off. The chopper is behind you, so it might be a little loud. I hope you can hear me. How's it going?
Going great, Emerald. Thank you. He actually jumped off right behind me. So fortunately, the noise has subsided and I can hear you loud and clear. But yes, it's been a very busy day here at the White House as we celebrate President Trump's 100th day in office in his second term. Lots to celebrate, of course, as we highlighted yesterday, the mass deportations ongoing, as well as today, the primary focus being 340,000 jobs added, cuts and inflation, the lowest in 4 years. He initiated 75 plus fair trade deals and 935 billion total in savings. So obviously, immigration and inflation were two major issues for the American people, and he has certainly done a lot to address both of those within his first 100 days. Many saying he's accomplished more in his first 100 days than many presidents, won't say any names, but I think we can all guess who have done in their entire 4 years. So he's accomplished quite a lot. We had the press briefing this morning with Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent joining alongside Caroline Leavitt. And as you highlighted in the opening clip, really focusing on this three-legged stool approach, the trade, the tariffs, and the deregulation, all to bring wealth and prosperity back to America. So while the fake news media loves to drive home this idea of Americans are going to suffer, we're on the verge of a recession, everyone is going to be failing miserably under Trump's new trade policies, we've been reminded time and time again that this is all part of the art of the deal. It's some short-term pain for long-term gain, and we're now seeing a lot of that actually play out. It's sounding like over 100 countries are coming to the table to make deals. India, as was mentioned this morning, is getting very close. They may be the first to actually come forward with a deal. So a lot is sort of lingering in the wake as the trade and tariffs continue to unfold, but it's looking promising, it's sounding promising, and I think Americans just need to be patient because ultimately this is going to benefit us greatly. We need to really, get acquainted with the fact that being so closely tied to China, all of our goods coming from there is very dangerous. It's really a national security issue at the end of the day, which Scott Bessent pointed out multiple times throughout the briefing this morning. And it is critical that we decouple from them to bring wealth and prosperity back to America.
Very well said. Yes. And that was really part of the priority of the first Trump administration, though, especially of advisor Peter Navarro, though they didn't really ultimately achieve it. It was something that was supposed to happen in an immediate second term. And now they're very focused on it in this. I love how he laid it out and explained it. They're taking all these measures to try to encourage companies to come back and manufacture here in the United States. I wonder, I didn't get to listen to the entire briefing, and I know that President Trump met with Speaker Johnson yesterday. Was there any questions or any information given by Secretary Bessent as to how they're working with Congress to promote legislation that might also make it easier to manufacture here in the United States?
Yes, it sounds like they are working with Congress to get this legislation passed to help with that. It's sounding like there may be some sort of refund for the American people along the way, but definitely, they are taking the appropriate steps to offset the immediate costs of the uptick in prices for Americans in the short term. Of course, again, this is what the fake news loves to drill down on and focus on, but there are efforts being made to, help Americans along as we ease into this process. And ultimately, yes, it will benefit us a long term. So they are actively working with Congress. He spoke with Speaker Mike Johnson yesterday, and there are steps being taken there to resolve this issue in the short term.
And we're going to talk about some of the measures like cutting taxes, which a lot of Americans are fan. That's a strategy that many Americans are a fan of, and we'll talk with Ed Dowd about that in just a moment. He joins us right after you, and I think he's actually had said that, indicated the last time we spoke that India would likely be one of the first countries to come to the table. Real quick, Allison, we're going to touch on this more at the end of the half hour, but he is headed to Michigan for that rally to celebrate the first 100 days. We don't know yet if he spoke to reporters. I'm waiting to hear as he just took off or anything he said, but the White House really making a big deal of this first 100 days, right?
Yeah, they sure are. Like I said, there's so much to applaud, so much that he's accomplished in a very short period of time. And, of course, the media is buzzing. They'll only find the negative things that he's done and point that out. But anyone who's been following knows that he's done a lot of great work. He certainly had his hands full with everything that he stepped into, courtesy of Joe Biden. So I think there's lots to celebrate. And in honor of President Trump's 100th day in office, we actually made our mark in the White House press briefing room. Historic day here for Lindell TV. We put our mic flag up in the White House press briefing room. All of the legacy media has some little knick-knack on this shelf above everyone's head, and we decided that today was going to be the day Lindell TV really celebrated our presence here at the White House. So check out my social media, Allison in the Know. You'll see the video posted up there. Very exciting stuff.
Oh my goodness, I wish I had known that. I was so busy getting ready for the show. I didn't see that, but I know exactly where you're talking about. And all these legacy media outlets, they have this paraphernalia up there, like little souvenirs. And I love that. I would have shared that right now, but I'll definitely go on my social media and share it so you can.
Well, it just happened moments before I joined you. It just happened moments before joining you, so check it out. I tagged you.
I love that you all did that. That makes my day. Thank you, as a former White House correspondent. And it looks like you got the memo because we're definitely dressed alike today. Allison Steinberg, I guess we're getting on that same wavelength. Thank you so much.
I love it.
Back in with you later.
Thanks so much, Emerald. Take care.
What President Trump is referring to is the ability for tariff revenue to give income tax relief. And I think there's a very good chance that we will see this in the upcoming tax bill. The president campaigned on no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime, and the restoring interest deductibility for autos, for American-made autos. So tariff income could be used for tax relief on all those immediately.
President Donald Trump and his team continue making the case for tariffs to replace most, if not all, taxes on American citizens. So why are the Democrats and Wall Street so opposed to this idea? Before the formation of the Federal Reserve a century ago, tariffs were the way that the U.S. government funded itself. Americans did not pay taxes the way they do now. So what changed? And why can't we go back? And as inflation of the price of most consumer goods continues coming back down to more affordable levels, why is the Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell raising interest rates rather than lowering them? Join us now is our friend and financial analyst, Ed Dowd. He's the author of the book Cause Unknown, The Epidemic of Sudden Tech Deaths in 2021, 2022, and 2023. Ed, it's good to see you. Today is like your day at the White House because there's a lot of talk about the economy and these tariffs. Clearly, the White House press corps was more skeptical, as they always are, about Trump's strategy. What do you make of what Bezos said about, using tariffs to fund the government as opposed to income taxes? Is this really a feasible plan? Because as someone who pays their fair share of taxes, I mean, this sounds too good to be true.
Yeah, it's a transition period. It'll take a lot of time, and unfortunately, the big elephant in the room is the deficit and the budget. We need to cut government spending. Doge got started on that. We need to see massive austerity in the budget, and that's the only way the math will work over time. So it's great that they're thinking about lowering people's income taxes and getting revenue from tariffs, but that's not going to happen overnight. And the math only works if you cut government spending drastically, which unfortunately that's what the economy has been living off of for the last several years, and so that'll bring pain. So there's a transition period, and there's no way around it, and people have to stay focused on the long game. Besson talked today or yesterday about some of the ideas. This depreciating a factory in the first year or two is a huge boon for investment in the U.S. The ROI for people to build here is outrageous if that gets passed or enacted. So they have good ideas to bring jobs and manufacturing back to the U.S., but this is a transition period. It's going to take time. The tariffs on April 2nd shocked the world, but the idea was to bring people to the table. And he did extend a 90-day moratorium on those tariffs, and that was the idea. It's a dynamic process, and so we're going to see deals probably over the summer be announced, and I think we're going to hopefully have a nice summer in the stock market, but eventually, unfortunately, we believe that there's a looming tech bubble bursting and AI bubble bursting and a housing problem down the road that can't be avoided.
I want to hit that again on that bringing manufacturing back. A lot of people say that that's just not possible with the kind of workforce we have here and various issues that they go to. How much manufacturing could we actually bring back to our country, Ed?
Well, it's a long process. It's not going to happen overnight. Building factories takes time.
Yeah.
Deregulation has to be a big part of this. You just can't turn on a light switch and manufacturing pops up all over the country. So it's a transition period. And if you make the incentives strong enough, deregulate depreciation in the first year for factories and equipment, the math will start to work, and you'll see activity sometime out at the end of 26, 27. But again, there's a valley in between. And unfortunately, the mainstream media is going to pin the what I think is a recession coming on Trump. It was basically the cake was already baked during the Biden administration. Interesting fact: the fiscal year for the government is September to September. So Biden, for this year's fiscal year, had October, November, and December, and part of January to really ramp up government spending. The expenditures over last year were 13%. The growth in the whole budget was 7%. So they front-loaded government expenses to juice the economy until they handed it off to Trump. And so they kind of spiked the cannon, and there's going to be a slowdown whether we like it or not.
What about inflation? This is what Secretary Bezin had to say earlier today during that briefing in regards to inflation. Listen.
The bringing down the terrible Biden inflation has been a priority for the first 100 days of the Trump administration, and President Trump has done a great job of leading that since January 20th. Interest rates, mortgage rates are down, gasoline and energy prices are down. We're expecting the further decreases, and as Caroline said, the big tax on consumers that goes unnoticed is deregulation or regulation, and we are deregulating and bringing that down.
So what is your expectation for inflation?
We see inflation coming down quite a bit. We're expecting inflation to be sub 2% CPI print by the fall. It's already starting to flow through the system. New tenant rents started collapsing in the fourth quarter. They continue to go lower. That's a leading indicator of all tenant rents and then home prices. So, and that's the biggest part of CPI, it's shelter. So inflation's coming down. Oil prices are telling you that the global economy is slowing, and interest rates coming down is telling you that the growth in the U.S. economy is slowing. So this will all have a stimulative effect down the road. There's a lag. So interest rates are going lower. The Fed is behind the curve as usual. They'll eventually cut once the hard data turns bad. My partner and I, Carlos, were having a debate. I think that hard data turns bad in the fall. He thinks it turns bad starting this month, the month of May. So we'll see what happens, but it's inflation is definitely coming down.
Okay, here Trump makes the case that Jerome Powell should have already lowered the interest rates. We've had some, undercover reporting showing, an employee or something saying that Jerome Powell is particularly just trying to defy Trump. Here's what Elizabeth Warren said that Powell needed to. This is when she said that Powell needed to lower interest rates before the 2024 race. Let's take a listen to that, and then we'll get into something else.
Is actually go ahead and do a nice big rate cut. Keep in mind that keeping those rates high, as he has done, keeping those interest rates so high, actually has contributed to our measure of inflation. The infrastructure that keeps this stock market strong, and therefore a big part of our economy strong, and therefore a big part of the world economy strong, is the idea that the big pieces move independent of the politics, that somebody is making her best decisions economically and independently. If we understand that if the New York Stock Exchange, if interest rates in the United States are subject to a president who just wants to wave his magic wand, this doesn't distinguish us then from any other two-bit dictatorship around the world.
So you're saying, though, Powell can only hold out for so long. Ultimately, he will have to budge, no matter how much he dislikes Donald Trump or wants to hurt him.
Absolutely. The markets will move first. They're already starting to move. The 10-year is getting back to below it was before Liberation Day. There was a short-term technical issue in the Treasury markets on margin calls. So 10-year yields are already starting to creep down. I think they'll be below where they were April 2nd, indicating that liquidity is tight. And look, they should have lowered interest rates in conjunction with the tariff announcements because tariffs are not inflationary. They're actually deflationary. It was a short-term shock to the system, a lot of uncertainty. And Bernanke talked about the Great Depression and excoriated the Fed back then when they didn't lower interest rates during the tariff wars. They kept rates unreasonably high and added to the Great Depression. I'm not suggesting we're going into the Great Depression, but the academic studies have been done. The Fed should have realized it'd be a shock to the system and started to lower. So they're waiting for the hard data. By the time the hard data comes out, it'll be too late, and they'll be chasing interest rate cuts all the way down.
That's why it's more important for people to be informed and be savvy given what's going on. Real quick, Adele, this is on a totally different subject, but I understand that your business partner is in Spain, and we've been watching these infrastructure blackouts in Spain. What is going on? Do you have any insight from your business partner over there?
Yeah, so I finally got in touch with him. He's in Portugal. Portugal and Spain were knocked out. And I can actually speak on this. Yeah, I can actually speak on this issue a little bit. I was an electric utility analyst at Donaldson, Lufkin, and Genret back in the late 90s. And when you go to all renewables, the grid becomes unstable because you need a constant base load, which coal and natural gas provided, and nuclear. When you remove all those and you go to just purely renewables, the grid becomes unstable. So anybody who's shocked by Spain hitting 100% renewables this month and a massive blackout should know better. There's been studies done on this. It disrupts the stability of the grid. And this is what, if you go to 100% renewables, this is what you got, people. You got blackouts, blackouts, blackouts. And this is going to be a problem until they say no mas and refire up some coal plants or nuclear plants. This is just nonsense. They blamed a rare atmospheric event on what happened. I don't know what that means. But this is what you get when you go to 100% renewables. You need constant base load. Renewables are not reliable. If the wind is not blowing and the sun is not shining, this is what you get.
A real life example. I feel for the people in Spain and Portugal. I sincerely feel for them, but hopefully we can all see from their example that that's not the way we want to go in the future. I actually didn't know that about your background, Ed. So we're going to call on you more for that topic as well, as we'll probably have a little bit more of that going on this year. As also, good to see you, Ed Dow. Thanks for sticking with us for longer than usual.
Thank you. Good to be here, Emerald. Thank you.
Whether it's being a weekend warrior or spending time with your family, feeling your best is the key to doing the things you love. That's why I'm excited to tell you about Nirvanta. It's a natural solution designed to help you stay active and live well naturally. Nirvanta is a topical blend of all natural essential oils like frankincense, myrrh, and a proprietary gold standard plant stock extract. It's perfect for your hands, feet, knees, back, or anywhere else that needs a little extra care. Use Nirvanta proactively as part of your daily maintenance routine, and you're guaranteed you're going to feel the difference. Simply massage Nirvanta in for at least 60 seconds, 2 to 3 times a day to get the best results. And if you're not completely satisfied, you get your money back. No questions asked. There's simply no risk and no reason not to try Nirvanta today. Right now, you get 15% off with code Lindell exclusively at nirvantahealth.com. So stop reaching out for that medicine cabinet. Get Nirvanta instead and experience the difference. Go to nirvantahealth.com. Use code Lindell to get 15% off today. Nirvanta Health. Live well naturally.
The same guy who tried to overthrow an election is just like truly setting us down a path of dictatorship. He's illegitimate. He's terribly immoral, breaking every norm. We're going to resist him. Everything he does.
James O'Keefe here in Arlington, Virginia, in front of the Pentagon. The branch chief inside the Pentagon saying on hidden camera he's going to resist against Trump and Hegseth. Now, since President Trump was elected and assigned Pete Hegseth as Secretary of Defense, the DoD has faced a number of leaks in the past few months from employees inside the Pentagon.
There's some type of deep state forces that want to make sure you don't stay there.
They've come after me from day one, just like they've come after President Trump. I mean, I've gotten a fraction of what President Trump got in that first term.
Yes, it's true. Every level of government is riddled with subversive Marxist communists who believe they do not have to adhere to the Constitution and are looking to subvert President Donald Trump's agenda and his appointees at every turn, as James O'Keefe is doing such a great job of exposing. In fact, James O'Keefe and Laura Loomer are doing a much better job of vetting and exposing the deep state actors than the political appointees in the Trump administration who are supposedly getting paid to do so. These bad actors, though, don't just have an effect on personally Donald Trump or members of his administration, but they also have real consequences for those people who have been targeted by the Biden regime. Case in point, the recent habeas corpus hearing of our friend and American hero, Tina Peters, the former Mesa County clerk. While the Trump Department of Justice did fall in support of the release of Tina, they didn't send the best to represent the government to argue for her release. According to reports, the federal government is saying that it was reviewing whether Peters' prosecution was oriented more toward inflicting political pain than toward pursuing actual justice. The judge, according to reports, pressed the government to provide evidence warranting a review, but the DOJ attorney sent in the case, one Abigail Stout, said she wasn't authorized to discuss any ongoing review and had no knowledge of any evidence. Now, here's what we're told. A source close to Peters' defense team expressed frustration with the government lawyer, who is a young 30-something former Jones Day attorney. That's a very swampy DC firm, in case you're not familiar with it. Our source said that Stout phoned in the appearance and didn't make the obvious argument that Tina Peters is a witness in a federal investigation in order to secure her release. So here's the main question. Why isn't the Civil Rights Division, under Harmeet Dillon's leadership, sending a true fighter, a true constitutionalist to fight for American hero Tina Peters? Probably because they can't find that many at the DOJ. And that's a big problem. The GOP is constantly snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. And that's the absolute truth. And more breaking news in the way of swamp creatures. This from Pfizer whistleblower and our next guest, Brooke Jackson, who went to X to share this very disturbing news regarding her case. Jackson wrote, quote, Trump Department of Justice deploys Harvard alum, 30-year-old DOJ operative, one Charles W. Scarborough, to bury me and all evidence of the illegal 2020 biowarfare experiments and vaccine mandate abuse. This comes after the U.S. government tried to shut down Jackson's case against Pfizer for the COVID-19 mRNA jabs the firm created. Here's what the U.S. government had to say for itself. The government argued, quote, the FDA was aware of the protocol violations allegedly witnessed by Brooke Jackson before it granted Pfizer emergency use authorization for its vaccine. The government explained that it has had continued access to the Pfizer vaccine clinical trial data, and in the FDA's view, Pfizer's vaccine is, here you go, effective, and that the government should not be required to bear such burdens on a case inconsistent with its public health policy. How's that for an admission? The Trump administration went on to complain that, quote, it should not have to expend resources in a case that is contrary to its public health policy. Well, we all know that policy needs to change and should have already by now. Here's looking at you, RK Jr. So, despite all contrary evidence showing that the COVID-19 jabs were bad for you, and despite the fact that President Trump's own supporters opposed forced vaccinations, the Trump administration is working overtime to stop a legitimate whistleblower complaint against Pfizer for manipulation of vaccine injury data. Make it make sense. And joining us now is that whistleblower, Brooke Jackson, and her attorney, Warner Mendenhall. Welcome to you both. I think welcome to the show for the first time, Brooke, and welcome back, Warner. It's good to see you both.
Oh yeah, thank you very much.
Brooke, I have to admit that I was very disappointed when I logged onto X and I saw your tweet. Because I followed your case very closely. I think it was one of the most important cases that have been ongoing, and I would have hoped that you would have had already a better response from the Trump Department of Justice. Tell us about the latest.
Well, I guess for me, that's kind of what I've been running on for the last almost 5 years now is hope. And that's hope that, the people that have taken this product of Pfizer's would get a little bit of justice through holding these pharmaceutical companies accountable for fraudulent behavior in the conduct of their clinical trials. So where we are now, Warner's going to have to tell you more about the legal, but from just my perspective, I see myself as just an average everyday soccer mom who had a kind of a cool special job and witnessed Pfizer cheating in their clinical trials. I told the DOJ, FDA, all agencies what was going on, and ultimately lost my job. And here we are. It's absolutely mind-blowing to know that I have a government that doesn't support me as a whistleblower, but especially the American people. It blows my mind.
Warner, I want to talk a little bit about this DOJ attorney that has been deployed to Brooke's case, as Charles W. Scarborough. His background is very concerning. There's allegedly connections to the fourth anthrax vaccinations under former Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld, right? So this is not just some attorney per se.
I mean, this type of attorney, I would call him a case killer, right? They're bringing him in to kill the case. He has this deep history with the deep state and the DOD, and this is a DOD contract. I think your viewers know that. So he's coming in, serving the deep state, serving the Department of Defense. And I really do have some questions about whether he consulted with his client, Bobby Kennedy, about the government's position on this case, because as we've seen, they are still claiming that Brooke Jackson's case is contrary to the public health policy of the United States. And one of the things they say is, well, we don't agree with her interpretation of data. Well, she knows the data. She knows it was fraudulent. She knows that the basis for injecting billions of people relied on just 170 people that were gleaned out of an initial population of 43,000. And that data is manipulated, and it is falsified, and the processes with which they came up with any hint of safety or efficacy are completely fraud. And I think all of us know that now.
I would agree with you. Okay, so this comes out of the DOJ's Civil Fraud Division, and as you said, that means that Bobby Kennedy, as the Health and Human Services Secretary, is essentially the client. Okay, so
right.
It's hard to. Secretary Kennedy could kill this. I mean, can he go to the DOJ and say, this is not the direction I want to go?
In my view, he can, absolutely. I mean, obviously, he's going to consult with the president, and he's going to consult with Pam Bondi. But his role here is to establish what their positioning is in Brooke Jackson's case, and he should be having conversations and be in conversations with the attorneys that are ostensibly representing the position of the administration. And I got to tell you, fraud is no basis, to have a public health policy. And in fact, the Federal False Claims Act, and this is what we argue in Brooke's case, is actually designed so that citizens play a role as a check on corrupt government. Well, we had a corrupt government under the Biden administration and that FDA and those decisions, and Brooke Jackson was a check on that corrupt government. Now we need this government that's coming in and has been voted in to clean things up, to help us clean it up in this case and frankly, many others around the country.
Brooke, you tweeted out this as well. You said, where have all the cowboys gone? The Department of Defense wants to pursue criminal case against Ventavia, former attorney Joe Androffi, February 2021. Ventavia ran Pfizer's clinical trial sites. I blew the whistle. The data was rigged. The injuries pile up. Still, the lies become law. DOD saw enough to consider criminal charges. No prosecutions, no public hearings, no accountability. Instead, they defend Pfizer. The FDA rubber stamped the fraud. HHS buried the evidence. That's what happened, but nothing has changed yet under the Trump administration, right?
Nothing. The lies continue, the injuries, the deaths mount, like I said. And, we talk about RF Kennedy. He knows. This administration, Jay Bhattacharya knows. Marty Macri at FDA know. I've spoken to them. I've spoken to, some of the people. Everybody knows that Pfizer's clinical trials were fraudulent. They rigged the studies. It's in their own clinical trial documents. Remember, Emerald, the ones that they wanted to hide for 75 years, it's no secret. What's been kept a secret and hidden, other than the injuries and how unsafe this product is, the government doesn't want to do anything about it. It threatens what I think is the national health policy, which is vaccines are good. And over the years and decades, really, we're finding out that they're not. And I do have to praise these guys, the new guys that have come into HHS and FDA and CDC. NIH. They're doing good things, and I have no doubt that the changes that they're making will make America healthy for the next few years. But what happens when this next administration comes in? Will they undermine all the work that these guys are currently doing now? I think they will. Vaccines are a moneymaker, and that's what it boils down to. Money and power is disgusting.
As you just noted, Brooke, you had quite a plethora of high-profile support for your case prior to the administration, and you noted several of those high-profile people are now comfortably in the administration. Have you heard from or talked to any of them since they were put in their positions?
Not directly. People that I know they have deployed to their teams. So no, none directly. And I know that, and again, I know that they support me. It's just, it's men versus a machine. It's men versus this powerful enterprise. And how do you defeat that? I don't know. I don't know.
You truly are one of the heroes out of the pandemic. I followed your case since the very beginning. It was very important to me. Warner, I just want to make sure that people understand again what needs to be done. The immediate situation with Scarborough needs to be rectified. The DOJ needs to have a change in position as it relates to Brooke's specific case, but you also notice that there needs to be a change in position for many cases, and they need to be identified. I just want to make sure as we close this segment that everyone in our audience understands what needs to be done. And secondly, I just am going to ask, a question about this. Is it that maybe they don't have enough of their own people in place to do what's needed to be done, not just in Brooke's case, but across the board to identify a lot of these problem areas? Could it be an issue of being understaffed with political appointees?
I think that's partially correct. I know for a fact that they are still staffing up, but when we have these high profile cases, this is an emergency, guys. We need this COVID shot pulled off the market. We need mRNA technology ended at this point. It is very unsafe. It's not been effective, and we've got to stop this. And we need the public to push as hard as they can. I mean, politicians aren't going to do anything unless they sense that the public is behind them and the public is pushing them. We can't just, Bobby Kennedy or Trump, nobody's going to come in and save us. We have to save ourselves. And the only way to do that is to pressure these politicians in every way possible. So let's draw attention to cases that we need the federal government to change its position on. Let's get those military that were fired rehired without conditions, without, for example, let's get a change of position in Brooks Jackson's case. Let's get VAERS, vaccine injuries, to be reported properly the way it was not done under Biden. So there's a lot of things we can do. Every one of you who's listening, please let your congressman, let your senator know that this case is out there and that we need Bobby Kennedy to instruct the DOJ to do the right thing here and to change the position of the U.S. government in this case. So I really want to encourage people to, do something on this. The government is not going to run in the direction we need it to unless we're all pushing it to go in that direction.
Well, ain't that the absolute truth? That's what we talk about a lot here on the Absolute Truth.
I know.
Look, Brooke, thank you so much for your bravery. Thank you so much, Warner, for explaining exactly with minute detail what needs to be done. Now you and our audience, let's help them get it done. I do think eventually they will have to hear us, right? I understand what it's like coming into a new administration, but this is a high priority case in my opinion. Thank you both so much.
Much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's talk about President Trump's 100 days. What are you most thankful for that he's accomplished? It's just been absolutely amazing as a whole. I knew it was going to be good after his first term with keeping all of his promises, but this has been even better than I could have expected. Obviously, at the top of the list is getting rid of the illegals from the country. That has to be done just to bring safety back to the country, get rid of the fentanyl out. That's not reduce the amount of fentanyl. No. I'm a big supporter of dismantling the Department of Education, so that was huge. I actually was doing a standing ovation in my living room watching the signing of the executive order.
What impacts you the most with what he has accomplished so far?
What I see on the news that the borders is good because we need work done in the borders, and then with the taxes, we need our taxes to be lowered.
Hear, hear. I agree with the lady you just saw there on taxes. Trump traveled, as you know by now, to one of the Rust Belts that delivered his second term to him in order to celebrate his first 100 days in office. That would be the great state of Michigan. Our very own Mr. Mike Lindell and Vanessa Broussard were on the ground for the rally, greeting fans behind the scenes, celebrating with them the Trump victory and what they perceive as the best 100 days in office ever. And we probably can't disagree with them. Here to help us break down the first 100 days is Steve Abramovich with Heartland TV. Steve, it's so good to see you. And speaking of Rust Belts, right? You know, all of the media really focuses on the two coasts. So I love that Trump went into the interior. He went to Michigan, right? To celebrate this win, obviously in the Rust Belt. Now, I know you're in a more like me, you're in a liberal land in a sea of red, just a little tiny liberal area in the heartland. But how do you think people are feeling in general about Trump's first 100 days?
I think they're anxious. I mean, the people still have to go and shop at the grocery store, fill their gas tank, and prices have gotten a little better at the gas tank, but not so much, for back to school clothes or whatever as summer's approaching. So I think they're ultimately patient, but they are getting anxious. Things are getting expensive, and it is hard cost of living here in America. So I do think they want to give them the benefit of the doubt. They're watching the news. They're watching you. They're looking for signs of optimism. But, it's 100 days. That's a long time. They're running out of patience.
Okay, so what I'm hearing from you is you think that the Trump tariff strategy is not playing well with America. Is that what I'm hearing from you?
They haven't felt that yet. They might, come back to school in fall or Christmas for sure, but they're seeing things more like the everyday because, I have to remind everyone that the budget that they're working under was Biden level spending. And so inflation wasn't going to go down right away. Yes, it's nice that they're able to take care of eggs right before Easter, but they also didn't take a victory lap on that like they should have to actually make it, show it that it's not their inflation, it's the old administration's inflation, giving the opponents now, Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, the ability to say it's Trump's inflation still. Not the case for those who know, but those who are just barely getting by, going to work every day, getting their kids home from school, going through finals, whatever the case may be, they're seeing it more as a pocketbook issue. And I think it's going to hurt in the midterm elections next year if they don't get control of this messaging and to be able to say, we are doing things. And so they, to your point, were able to say, the reason why you're spending more at the grocery store is Trump's tariffs. How cool is that? 2 words to start with T. Trump's tariffs. We got you. We got you on that. You and I know it's not true because we know a little thing about economics, but in reality and the political world, they're going to hang it on his neck. And until they get those prices down to back to reasonable, it's going to hurt. And I think they are frustrated because gas prices have come down leading up to the 4th of July driving season. But the rest of the inflationary prices that have come from spending, Congress's spending, is going to be a sort of Damocles over Trump's head if he can't get around this.
We had Ed Dowd on a little bit earlier in the show, and he said that inflation is coming down. He did, chide the Federal Reserve for not cutting interest rates at this point because it is coming down. He said it is going to come down a little bit more. We'll be under, well under 2%. And Secretary Bezin, who was obviously trying to message today from the briefing room on this, also noted that inflation is coming down and tried to lay out their strategy. I don't know if you got a chance to watch that, but Ed Dowd had said on our show in the past, though not today, that messaging on the economy and Trump's economic strategy has been a real sore point for them, that they haven't managed to do that well. Why do you think that is? Because I do understand that you have the corporate media out there just saying tariffs bad, tariffs bad, tariffs bad. But what I hear from both you, who's in media, and then from Ed Dowd, who is in finance, is that from both worlds are saying they are not doing a good job at messaging on this in a way that gets the American public to hang in there with them on this and to understand that some things are actually getting better despite what you hear in the corporate media.
I think it's a double-edged sword. He came in leading guns ablazing with tariffs as a part of a two-step process for tax cuts or tax Social Security and tax on tips being done away with, which would help the consumer spend because they'd have that much more, but they didn't get that. So now they got a double whammy. Even Amazon is showing a tariffs tax on your purchases now, which is going to translate to the consumer going, wow, who do I blame? I'm going to blame the administration. This is why gold is at $3,500 an ounce for the first time, because the real cost of things is going up while the dollar policy that is there to have low interest rates or go down is inflationary. And it's kind of a messed up situation if you don't have Congress who has to pass these bills to allow for the spending to stop to alleviate that pressure on inflation to go up. I sound like CNBC all of a sudden, but my point is that they can't have one without the other. You can't have tariffs and an income tax and taxes on spending that isn't like, say, a VAT tax, because it's now double taxation almost in a way. Tax it at the gates of America, tax it at the store when you go buy it. Nobody can afford it. Prices go up. They pass that on to the consumer. It's just the way it is. It's economics 101. And like I said, if Amazon, which is a day-to-day, everybody uses it for everything, including when it's back to school and you go buy your computer and your pencils and whatever, you're going to see a tariff tax. You can't blame Joe Biden for that. That's a Trump thing. So they have to have the other side of that equation, which is low taxes, a tax cut. Hasn't come in yet. How can they? Congress has been on vacation for 80 of the 100 days. So when you start seeing gold come back down off of 3,500, maybe to something like 3,200, still sign of inflation, then we can start saying, it's working. The economy can be optimistic. We can shop again. Right now, the consumer's getting tapped out and afraid. Look at the amount of credit card debt that's out there. It's unbelievable. Same thing with school debt. They tried to do away with it under Biden, which is illegal, but they tried. It's still there. It's just a big mess. Some people even say that part of the reason for the influx of immigration, as well as taking over Greenland and Canada, was to diffuse that inflation amongst more people who spend money. That's not going to happen. So there's not going to be that pressure off of prices rising. And like I say, come 2026, when everyone's going to the polls, they will vote their pocketbook. They will look at the prices at the most recent trip to the grocery store, most recent credit card bill, most recent interest rates on that credit card, and they're going to blame the guy in charge, mostly the Congress in charge, because he's not on the ballot. They are, and that could give the Democrats the majority. It's happened before, over and over again.
Let's be honest. If the American people are looking at Congress alone and this Republican majority, they're not going to try to keep them in power because they haven't done anything. And Congressman Tim Burchett was actually out on X today. I should have brought in a clip of him because he's again, just acknowledging that his colleagues don't really want to do anything, and that has been. And we've been talking about that a lot on the show. Is the fact that you don't have any legislation codifying Trump's agenda. And that really does, I'll be honest, I know a lot about the inner workings of the administration and what's going on. I don't have a good handle on, their Office of Legislation, their legislative director, and how well they're working with Congress to codify some of this. But it's moving at a snail's pace, and they don't really have that much time. So if they lose the House and then, God forbid, lose the presidency in 2028, they could just come back on and flip the lights back on a Democrat administration very, very easily. I think that the American people need to understand that they really got to get Congress to actually do something.
And most of these things that he's done are executive orders, which could easily be overturned, just like he's been overturning Biden's executive orders. We're going to be back and forth on executive orders if Congress doesn't do anything. The one good thing that we've done, which is also a double-edged sword, is Doge. So you got an outsider coming into the government. He finds $200 billion just recently but that's out of $35 trillion of debt. So it's a rounding error. We spend $1 trillion on interest alone this year. So just 20% of that, I'm going to give an A+ to Elon and Doge for finding $335 million in improper payments with the very first ever verification system. hard to believe we never had codes or budget bills attached to money that was going out the door. That's $1/3 billion in just this year alone, and it's only 100 days of April, but it could be trillions over time. So that's an A+. But in terms of the vetting on all these other people and what they've done, I'm going to go with an incomplete on 100 days, because he just really hasn't got the people in there, including the elected ones in the Senate and the House, to make these things stick. If he had, we would be able to perceive much different things like prices at the grocery store than we do now, because let's not forget, part of that price increase is also crime. A lot of these stores like Walgreens and Safeway in the inner cities have been closing and getting out of there because they've been getting so many things stolen. They had to have high prices just to pay for themselves. Well, we don't see that as terms of tariffs or inflationary policy. We just see that as day-to-day living expenses and the cost of living to be an American. That I think Holman and Nome and doing the arrests and deportations of the illegals is going to help that, but it's going to take a while before these stores move back into the inner cities and take the risk of fire insurance and theft insurance and all the rest. That can't happen without Congress's help, and Congress has been on vacation.
Congress is always on vacation. Even when they're on vacation. You touched on the immigration issue, and it does seem that is where people are, unless you're a real hardliner, or who looks at immigration every single day. And I have those friends, right? That is what they do. They focus on deportations, and they don't feel like there's enough. But if you're the average American, you see that the border is not being overrun on a daily basis. You understand that they are deporting Tren de Aragua members and MS-13 members out of your community. Then you feel pretty good. And that seemed to be that was the first point that our Vanessa Broussard at Lindell TV, she talked to a lot of people at the rally today. And that was like the number one thing they would mention when they talked about the successes. So there has been some movement there. I do want to get to another issue, though, because, of course, there was the Canadian election along with Trump's 100 days, and there's the ongoing tariff war with them. This is what Canada's Carney had to say. Very strong words for this little man. Let's listen.
As I've been warning for months, America wants our land, our resources, our water, our country. Never. But these are not idle threats. President Trump is trying to break us so that America can own us. That will never, ever happen. But we also must recognize the reality that our world has fundamentally changed.
He might want to check in with Alberta on that before. They might actually want to go with Trump. So he might just want to say minus Alberta. But what do you make of Carney's statement, Steve?
I mean, the greatest thing to ever come out of Canada in my lifetime is Bob and Doug McKenzie from Strange Brew. I mean, they need us more than we need them. They import oil to us. We could do it ourselves. We can get it from Alaska. He's talking tough. He's doing what a new politician always does when they have a bad economy underneath them, is they blame the outward neighbors. Back to France and Germany in World War I. It's a joke. I don't even want to comment on it. I think if Trump decided to stare that guy down, he would do a better job than Trudeau, who he actually bounced out of office completely. So he's just picking up where Trudeau left off. It's a total joke. And, these are the exact same things I'm talking about, is that Trump would be getting an A if he was actually given a chance. But his not only domestic opponents, but his international opponents, like that guy who's a total WEF globalist, I mean, he's not going to do Canada any favors. Coming from a state that bordered Canada, I know how useless they really are. That even their currency can just show you long term, it's only worth about 2/3 of what ours is. Our economy is just bigger. Let's face it. We don't need maple syrup that bad. But in the meantime, we still have a Department of Education. 20 to 30 illegals are still here. All in terms of the 2030 census. Egg and gas prices are down. We do trade with them, so we do want them to play along, but we don't need them. Much bigger partners down in Brazil and Venezuela, even, believe it or not. So I just think this guy is doing what any grandstanding newbie politician is trying to do, is round up his anti-Trumpers so that he can show that he's got some Winston Churchill type of fight them on the beaches speech, but he can't really back it up. They don't even have an army.
I do think the White House finally understands they have a messaging problem when it comes to economics, tariff strategy. We'll see how this proceeds over the next couple weeks, because it just seems though in the last couple of days, have they really tried to launch a messaging campaign, right? So we'll see, and we'll check back in with you in a couple of weeks and see what grade you give them on their messaging. If they do rip it up, we'll see what Steve Abramowitz scores them out in a couple of weeks, and with a little effort, maybe they'll hear you on this show and kick it into gear. It's good to see you, Steve.
Thank you. Bye.